Hey guys, this is the MMA Breakdown, back with my predictions for UFC 193, Rousey versus Holm, taking place on November 15th in Australia. Obviously, I'm disappointed that the Lawler-Condit fight fell out. I would have much rather have seen that as the main event than Rousey-Holm. But still, a really strong pay-per-view card, I think. You have the two title fights, that's always nice, and some other great matchups. The rematch with Hunt and Silva, Whittaker should be a great fight, and an above-average prelim card as well, I think, both on Fox Sports 1 and Fight Pass. Some decent matchups, some good prospects. Feeling pretty good about this one. So no clip on this video for UFC Fantasy because I'm recording this about a week before Poirier versus Duffy. I already showed what happened with my fantasy for the last event, UFC 192. That was in my Poirier versus Duffy predictions video, and I'm not sure which video is going to have my progress from my results from the Poirier versus Duffy fight night. But whenever that is, I'll include the clip there. But follow me on Twitter, link in the description. I always live tweet during fights, so follow me there, and let's get started. So on the Fight Pass prelim card, the opening fight at flyweight is Ben Nguyen versus Ryan Benoit. I loved Ben Nguyen's debut performance over Alptek and Oskalic. I had picked Oskalic to win that fight, but Nguyen, he showed up, rose to the occasion, and had a great knockout. Kind of a slow fight from what I remember, but then Nguyen caught him and exploded. I think it was the second or third round, maybe, I can't remember. But the finishing sequence was great. Looked powerful, looked athletic, and Ryan Benoit, coming off of that great turnaround comeback win over Sergio Pettis, was getting dominated all the way up until the end of that fight, where he also just turned things around, exploded, caught Pettis, and put him away. Before that, it was a long layoff after his debut loss to Josh Sampo, but in that fight, I think he got on top, got some ground and pound off, but I think did he get submitted with a triangle or a rear naked choke, but I do remember him, looking good at moments in that fight too. I think Nguyen, though, I think his striking just seems more consistent. I think he has more power. I think he might have the size advantage here too. Benoit seems like a really aggressive guy. I think he will have some success pushing the pace, and has power as well. But Nguyen, that win over Oskalic, I think was impressive, and Benoit, I think, got the win, Benoit got the win over the higher level opponent in Pettis, but was getting dominated. Had lost to Sampo. Nguyen, I think, seems like the more solid fighter, and I'm going to go with him here. All right, next up at middleweight, Dan Kelly versus Steve Montgomery. This, to me, is not a good matchup, and I really don't care about it. But Kelly versus Montgomery. Kelly, I thought he had a really great showing against Luke Zacharich in his UFC debut, coming off of Tough Nations, and I didn't see this guy on Tough Nations. He submitted somebody, I can't remember who, but I thought that was a great performance against Zacharich. Came out, walked him down, landed a lot of strikes, and then took him down and submitted him quickly with the Kimura. But after that, had a terrible showing against Patrick Walsh, where his striking just looked very ineffective, and I actually thought he got outpointed in that fight, but won the decision. And then against Sam Alvey, just got put away with the first shot that he was hit with. Showed kind of a suspect chin. Steve Montgomery was on Tough 21 was it? The last one, ATT versus Black Zillions. Never competed in the house, had the seizure on the show, and then in the UFC fought Tony Sims where he caught him with a knee, but then soon after that ate a big shot from Sims that put him away. So I don't really know who to go with here. I think Kelly, if he can replicate what he did to Zachrich, I think he can have the more well-rounded game here. As the ground game showed okay striking, but those performances against Walsh and then the brutal knockout he suffered against Alvey, I just think those were really bad and have probably taken a lot out of him at this point. He's a really old guy as well, 37. Montgomery, a lot younger, I think in his 20s still, and I think Kelly has the better skill set, but I just can't take him here. I think that chin is too suspect at this point. I'm gonna go with Montgomery. Landed that knee on Sims. I think he'll be able to connect at some point and hurt Kelly. So I'm taking Montgomery. I think he gets the finish. All right, next up at welterweight, Richard Walsh versus Steve Kennedy. Richard Walsh, this guy is pretty solid. Another guy from Tough Nations, and in the UFC, had a win over Chris Indich in the Tough Nations finale, where he just dominated him the entire fight. And then Kichi Kunimoto lost that fight, got robbed, though definitely should have gotten the decision there. And then his last fight against Alan Jouban, they were going at it, trading back and forth. Jouban caught him with the elbow off of the clinch break, put him away. But Walsh is a big physical guy. He's tough, good in the clinch, good dirty boxing, has power. Maybe not great takedown defense. That's how Kunimoto was able to escape with a decision there. But I think he's just going to destroy Steve Kennedy. I have no idea really who Steve Kennedy is, other than seeing him in his debut fight when he fought Peter Sobotta and just looked absolutely terrible. Both mechanically, his striking just looked extremely stiff and very low level. I think Sobotta hurt him on the feet. I think he took him down, but then from there just took his back and choked him out. It wasn't even competitive for a second. So definitely going with Walsh, a guy who looks like a good talent. I think he's going to put Kennedy away pretty easily. So going with Walsh big time here. Next up at welterweight, Brendan O'Reilly versus James Moontasri. Another complete mismatch. I think Moontasri is just going to style on O'Reilly, walk all over him. O'Reilly, another guy from Tough Nations, and I didn't see him compete on the show either. Actually, maybe I did. He lost to... Did he lose to Chris Indich? I can't remember. No, Cajun Johnson. That's right. That was the only fight of the season I saw. It was the first episode, and Tough Nations was the only Tough season since Tough 10 of any kind that I didn't watch. So didn't see any of these guys on the show. But since coming into the UFC, I thought he just had a terrible showing against Zhang Lipeng. He got completely outworked, got bloodied up. Was beaten up on the ground and just totally out-hustled and just looked like he didn't want it and didn't really put forth a good effort in that fight at all. And then really surprised me against Vic Grujic. I thought he was going to get finished in that fight, but grinded it out. But all he really did was he clinched with him and pushed him up against the fence, just kind of grinded on him. It wasn't a very impressive showing. And whereas Moontasri, he's been a really dynamic guy. It's from his first fight with Joe Ellenberger, where he nearly put him away on several occasions, wasn't able to get the job done. And then his last fight against Cody Pfister, hurt him with something, I don't remember what, but has his arsenal of unorthodox strikes, spinning back kicks and stuff like that. Hurt Pfister, got him down, and submitted him with the rear naked. So I think a dynamic, high-volume guy like Moontasri is just going to be all over O'Reilly, and hurt him. So I like Moontasri big time here. All right. Moving on to the Fox Sports 1 prelim card at flyweight, Richie Vaculik versus Danny Martinez. Richie Vaculik, veteran of tough, what was it called? Tough Smashes, and actually competed at lightweight and looked pretty bad on the show, I thought. Got submitted by Colin Fletcher. Norman Park put a beating on him. But competing at flyweight in the UFC, got finished by Justin Scoggins, but I thought had really good performances against even his last fight where he got knocked out against Louis Smolka and against Roldan Songchon. Has a very straightforward plan of attack, just marches forward, puts a ton of volume on guys, and it's effective. Was able to do that to Songchon and also to Louis Smolka. Did that for 2 rounds. Was really putting a beating on Smolka. Had him hurt. Smolka wasn't connecting with anything, just eating all of Vaculik's strikes. And then at the beginning of the 3rd round, it's like the first shot that Smolka threw in that fight, that side kick to the face, knocked out Vaculik. But I thought he was definitely going to win a decision there and was really dominant. So I think that's going to be more than enough to beat Martinez, who hasn't really shown much in the UFC. Competed fairly well, I think, against Cariaso, but lost the decision. And against Jorgensen, dropped him at one point. I thought almost had him out of there, but got taken down a few too many times. And then his last fight against Serwin Kakai, I think that was kind of the nail in the coffin for him. I kind of wrote him off after that. Got hurt by Kakai several times and really couldn't mount any good offense. So going with Vaculik here to win a decision. Next up at light heavyweight, Gian Villante versus Anthony Perosh. This should be a fun matchup. But I think Perosh, his luck has kind of run out here. Had a good late career run in the UFC, got some nice wins, but a lot of those were novel wins against pretty low-level guys who couldn't hang in the UFC, like Vinny Magalhaes and who's the other guy, Nick Penner, Cyril Diabate at the end of his career. And his thing is... he's not a good striker, but against all those guys, he was able to stick around on the feet long enough, weather the storm, get inside, drag him down, and from there he has a pretty good submission offense, a good arm triangle choke, good ground and pound, but he's suffered some brutal knockouts over the years. Ryan Jimmo, that highlight reel head kick knockout, and then in his last fight against Sean O'Connell, just getting blasted in the first round and getting put out cold. I think Villante's going to do the same thing here. Villante's got big knockout power, not a good technical striker, not really a good, a consistent striker, but he knocked out Cody Donovan in a fight that he was really getting pieced up, almost looked like he was going to get put away himself, but pulled out the knockout. I thought he was looking great against Tom Lawler in his last fight before getting knocked out. He also has the wrestling, and he should just have a big physical advantage over Perosh. I don't give Perosh any chance really to just kind of drag this guy down and work his submission offense. I think Villante's too young and too big and physical himself to let Perosh just kind of manhandle him. And then on the feet, I think Villante just has a huge advantage. The better kickboxing. Perosh doesn't, he knocked out Vinny Magalhaes, but I don't see him being able to stand for 1 second really with Villante. So, and the Corey Anderson fight as well, forgot to mention, Villante was hammering that leg of Anderson. I thought was going to lose a decision, ate a ton of shots, not a very defensively sound striker, but again was able to pull out the late knockout. So another case where he displayed his knockout power, and I think this is going to look like the O'Connell fight for Perosh. He's just going to eat a big strike early and get put away. So got Villante here. Next up at welterweight, Kyle Noke versus Peter Sobotta. I don't know. Kyle Noke, if this was if this was 3 or 4 years ago, I would have taken Noke hands down. I think this guy had some value at one point. Was a veteran of Tough 11 and had some submission wins in the UFC. Submitted Chris Camozzi, knocked out Charlie Brenneman. But I think that break that he took to do the Ultimate Fighter Tough Nations really kind of hurt him. That was after he won the Brenneman fight, and then coming back to fight Cote, just looked completely debilitated. Was taken down at will, held down, and really couldn't create any separation on the feet. It was just a lay and pray fest for Cote. And then his last fight against Jonathan Webb, I thought he lost, got dropped at least on one occasion in that fight, maybe more. I can't remember. But just doesn't really have a dominant skill. Not really great at anything. Not a great wrestler. Not a great striker. Just kind of average everywhere. And Peter Sobotta, I think, was kind of an irrelevant fighter in his first stint in the UFC. Lost 3 straight. Last lost to Amir Sadala. But since coming back, has looked okay. Got a win over Pavel Pavlik. Not too dominant, but clearly won. And his last fight against Steve Kennedy, I already talked about, dominated him, got him out of there quickly. And Sobotta looks hungry. I think he's the more active kickboxer. Showed a bit of a ground game in his last fight. And more than anything, I think Noke is just kind of on his way out. His chin is starting to go. I like Sobotta here. I think he'll have a bit of a striking advantage. And, Noke's never really been great on the ground. Also, Andrew Craig was able to out-wrestle this guy. So I'm taking Sobotta here. I think it could be close. I think Noke has a shot to win, the more seasoned guy in the UFC. But, he's going downhill. And Sobotta's looked decent. So going with Sobotta. All right, next up at lightweight, Jake Matthews versus Akbar Arreola. Jake Matthews, I think this guy's a stud. I'm not going to compare him really to Sage Northcutt, but another young guy who looks like a lab specimen, is just huge for lightweight and has had some pretty good performances. A guy that I'm really excited about, a very young prospect, and just a guy that I'm really excited about. A guy that's come up in this international expansion era of the UFC, and I think kind of a gem that they found, and I'm really excited to track his progress. But Matthews versus Arreola, I think it's an easy fight for Matthews. Arreola, the only good performance he had in the UFC was his win over Yves Edwards. And that was Edwards' last fight in the UFC. Arreola was able to crack him on the feet and then submitted him on the ground with the armbar. But other than that, was dominated by who's that guy? Trator Oliveira. Completely outstruck from distance and was just lit up the entire fight. Couldn't do anything, completely outclassed. And then against Francisco Trinaldo was taken down and just pounded on for the entire fight. Completely dominated again. And Matthews is a big, strong, physical guy. Puts his body on people, and he's real strong in the clinch with the dirty boxing, and is showing maybe some more brute force over finesse, but still some effective submission skills. Finished Deshaun Johnson with a triangle. Finished Wagner Hocha, jiu-jitsu guy, with a rear naked choke. And then in his last fight, took down James Vick a few times, but got submitted. But I like Matthews to just take him down and hammer him, probably get the finish. So going with Matthews here. All right, on to the main card. This first fight here at heavyweight, Stefan Struve versus Jared Rosholt, I don't think is quite as worthy of being on the main card as the other 4 fights, but not a bad one, especially considering that there are 2 title fights at the top. But anyways, Struve versus Rosholt, an interesting fight. And you can make a case for either guy here. Stefan Struve, this guy I think was really improving well before he had his long layoff due to injury. The Miocic fight, he was able to outstrike him, knock him out. Seemed like his distance striking was finally working for him and becoming effective. And I thought even was doing well in the Hunt fight. Mounted him a few times. I thought he was winning on points, but just took so many punches, and Hunt was able to finally get the knockout, broke his jaw I think that was in the 3rd round. And Jared Rosholt, solid wrestler, guy who I think his wrestling, he looks like a college wrestler out there. I always say this in the cage. Looks like his wrestling is transferred over very well to MMA. Has gotten a few finishes, not a great finisher. Very methodical with his ground and pound. Doesn't really go for submissions. Just kind of this huge hulking guy that puts his weight on you and tries to pound you out. Only one finish actually in the UFC. That was against Josh Copeland. But his chin is suspect. Walt Harris was able to drop him. Alexei Olenek knocked him out, and then Timothy Johnson in his last fight almost knocked him out at the end of that round, was just turned it on and was trying desperately to get the knockout and almost got it. And if he didn't clinch so much with him, probably would have knocked him out earlier. So, Rosholt not really good with the hands. I think Struve, Struve has some power. He put out Miocic. I think he could catch Rosholt. But I think the big thing is on the ground. Struve has a good guard, good submission fighter. Submitted Pat Barry, pulls guard a lot. Did that to LeVar Johnson to submit him. And Rosholt, it's going to come down to whether his stifling, smothering wrestling style can shut down Struve's submission game. And I don't really think it can. The other heavyweights Rosholt has been beating with his wrestling are other, big, slow guys who aren't really mobile. And Struve, with his length, his proven submission ability, I think he's going to give Rosholt a lot of trouble there and probably submit him from his back. The big question, though, is how much has Struve lost at this point? Suffered a brutal knockout and looked pretty bad against Overeem in his return fight. Wasn't doing anything on the feet, got taken down and immediately pounded out brutally. And then his last fight against Big Nog, he looked marginally better, but I don't think that was enough to say that he's really back. Nogueira is just so hindered at this point and old, and Struve just kind of outpointed him, but still ate some big shots. And Struve's always been susceptible to that big overhand shot down the middle. I'm going to go with Struve here. I just think that submission game is going to give Rosholt a lot of problems on the feet. He is a more skilled striker than Rosholt, but Rosholt will be more physical, probably will be able to get that takedown, put him against the fence. It's going to be that ground battle, and I just think Rosholt hasn't faced anyone like Struve with his submission ability, so I'm going to go with Struve by submission here. All right, next up in middleweight, Uriah Hall versus Robert Whittaker. Great matchup. It should be a complete barn burner. I picked Mousasi to beat Hall in their last fight, and everyone just went crazy after he knocked out Mousasi with that spinning back kick. Whittaker, though, guy off of Tough Nations, had some good moments in the UFC, but had his struggles as well. Got knocked out by Stephen Thompson, lost a decision to Court McGee. But since moving up to middleweight, this guy's just been reborn, and I just glow when I talk about this guy because I just think he has so much raw potential. The fight against Hester was letting his hands go and threw way more volume and looked comfortable doing it, way more than he ever did at welterweight, and had big power, was able to hurt him and put him away. And I thought he was going to be too small for middleweight, but he was just as big as Hester and hit just as hard. Took some damage in that fight, but came through in the end, and then took a huge step up in competition to fight Brad Tavares and completely rose to the occasion and exceeded expectations. The hand speed that he showed in that fight and just the raw power, was able to knock out Tavares, who may have been a bit overrated, but this guy was on I think it was a 6 or 7 fight winning streak. Hadn't finished anyone, but it had only been finished once in the UFC by Tim Boetsch in the fight before that, and a fight that he was dominating and looking better than ever. And Whittaker just put this guy away, just smoked him. No one had come close to doing anything like that before. It was really an amazing performance. And again, just the sheer power and hand speed that this guy has is really kind of incredible. And Whittaker, I think, has just been a more consistent fighter than Hall. Hall, has shown that you pressure him, you make him uncomfortable, he just kind of shuts down. And Whittaker's going to put a ton of volume on Hall, more than he has ever had to deal with in his career. And Hall's a guy who really needs space and distance, and he's looking for that one big shot. He's not looking to put together solid rounds or really outpoint you or even do damage by accumulation. He's looking for that kill shot. Whereas Whittaker, I think, is just going to throw everything at him. And Hall, with all of the mental lapses he's had, the head case he's been, the Natal fight, he just kind of shuts down. Even the John Howard fight. I think Whittaker is just the hot guy right now. Whittaker is hittable, though. Thompson was able to figure him out, knock him out. He was dropped also by Court McGee and Colton Smith, so the guy can be hit, he can be dropped. But I like Whittaker, just a more consistent striker, higher output, and has been less of a head case than Hall. So I'm going with Whittaker here. I think, I don't know if he gets the knockout, but I am taking him here to get the win somehow. All right, next up at heavyweight, Mark Hunt versus Antonio Bigfoot Silva. The rematch, 2 years in the making. I talked about this in my previous video with the Henderson versus Belfort rematch. I said that Henderson, I think he's going to have a lot better shot at winning this fight with Belfort because of his improvement after getting off of TRT. I thought against Boetsch, he looked better than he had since the first Shogun fight. And Antonio Silva, this guy's just been a punching bag. The knockout losses to Mir and Arlovsky, he's just looks like he's just standing around in front of his opponents waiting for the knockout punch to come. And then gets off of TRT and looks completely different against Soa Paleli in his last fight. Did get taken down, and I don't know why Paleli didn't get his ground and pound working there. But Silva, when he got back to the feet, landed some strikes, was able to connect, hurt Paleli, put him away, and hadn't put in that kind of performance in a long time. And the first fight with Hunt, it's really kind of crazy, looking back at it now. Even at that point, Mark Hunt is this decorated kickboxer with huge power, was coming off of the Struve knockout, and Antonio Silva, kind of a glass chin guy, suffered the knockout loss to Kane, but for a couple rounds there, nothing had really happened in that fight. Mark Hunt hadn't been getting his striking going. I think he was the first one to drop Silva, but Silva, being this guy with a glass chin, was able to survive all all of the shots he ate from Hunt, and was able to get into mount. Got on top of Hunt and almost ended the fight himself on several occasions. And now, Mark Hunt has still proven that he has big power. I love the knockout over Nelson, but I wonder if he's kind of slowing down, if this might be the beginning of the end for Hunt, or maybe just the end. Dropped Verdum, but got knocked out in that fight. And then against Miocic, just took a prolonged beating, took so much damage, and, his cardio didn't seem to hold up. Just got taken down and got war on for that entire fight. And with Silva having a bit of momentum now, and this weird thing going on with Henderson and Silva getting off of TRT and looking better than they had in their previous fights, and maybe Silva was already off of TRT before that, but still look better now. I think the Mir fight, I can't quite remember when they banned TRT, but this kind of turnaround for these guys, and with the success that he had against Hunt in the first fight, that fight was a draw, almost finished Hunt a few times, and with Hunt being kind of on the decline, I think Silva might have a shot here if he lets his hands go, if he's able to get Hunt on the ground again and mount him. I like Silva to win it. Hunt's taken a lot more damage over the last few fights now. Silva has too, suffer those 2 brutal knockouts. But it's a crazy pick, but I'm going with Bigfoot Silva here. I just think he picks up where he left off in the last fight with Hunt. Hunt's been slowing down. I don't know if he's the same fighter, has the same pep in his step. I got to go with Silva. All right, co-main event, women's strawweight title fight, Joanna Jedrzejczyk versus Valerie Letourneau. I always love seeing Jedrzejczyk fight now. Just had an incredible performance against Esparza. Her striking is so good and devastating. It has a great combination of high output with big power, and she's technical as well, and amazing takedown defense. Just makes for a winning combination. And I think people don't think Letourneau's a worthy opponent, but I don't mind it too much. And Letourneau, I think Jedrzejczyk just will have the huge striking advantage here. But I will say I think Letourneau might be. I think she's the best striker that Jedrzejczyk has fought in the UFC. Maybe not better than Gadelha, but definitely better than Jedrzejczyk's last 2 opponents. And Letourneau is technical, has that tri-star kind of technical kickboxing. Dropped Marina Moroz in her last fight, and she's decent on the ground. I think that could be interesting if she is able to get Jedrzejczyk in a bad spot on the ground. The problem is she's not a great wrestler. Her submission win against Rakoczy, and then had Moroz in a submission in her last fight. Those didn't come off of takedowns. She dropped Moroz, and then she was taken down by Rakoczy. So I don't think she's going to take down Jedrzejczyk here. And anyways, Jedrzejczyk just has superb takedown defense. But the striking battle, I think Jedrzejczyk is just too aggressive, comes forward, puts way too much pressure on her opponents for Letourneau to really get the space and time she needs to work that striking. But I think it's there's a small chance Letourneau might be able to hold her own. But if Penne was able to last 4 rounds on the feet with Jedrzejczyk, I think Letourneau could last at least a couple rounds. I do think though ultimately Jedrzejczyk is just such a high level striker, has such a high output rate, and is very devastating, has power in her shots. I think she's just going to overwhelm Letourneau. But Letourneau I do think is solid, and definitely the best technical striker she's fought. So she can make it a bit competitive, but I do think Jedrzejczyk gets that finish in the end. So going with Jedrzejczyk. And the main event for the women's bantamweight title, Ronda Rousey versus Holly Holm. And to me, this is not one bit different than Rousey versus Carmouche, Rousey versus Correia, Rousey versus anyone. All that I'll give Holm is that, like I was saying about Letourneau, she will be the best technical striker that Rousey has fought. She does have the boxing background, but I don't know if it matters because she's not really a knockout striker. I think had a head kick knockout before coming to the UFC. But the kind of pressure that Rousey puts on people, like she did against Correia in her last fight and also against McMahon and Alexis Davis, she's become a really high-level striker and the best striker in the women's division, maybe other than Holm. But, has power, is able to put people away. And I think because a lot of people still don't like Rousey as a person, they don't give her the credit that she deserves for the strides she's made in her striking game. So if this was just striking, I still think I would favor Rousey. I really do, because Pennington and Renault, they were just hesitant. They didn't rush in. They didn't really try to make it a brawl. Neither of them attempted a takedown attempt, and they were just timid and stuck on the end of Holm's punches, stuck at range. If Rousey rushes at her, turns it into a dogfight, I don't know how Holm responds. You can't strike the same way in close quarters as you can when you have distance and are keeping people at bay. So just to establish that, if this is just a striking fight, I don't know if Rousey runs over her the same way she did to Correia, but I definitely would still favor her, certainly. But why would anyone think for 1 second that Rousey is going to strike with Holm, or even has to, because she doesn't? Like I already said, Pennington and Renault, neither of them attempted a single takedown attempt on Holm, and I have no idea why. This is a former boxer coming into the MMA world at the highest level, and neither of these fighters thought that they should try to challenge her there with a takedown. I think Renault pulled guard, but was just hopped onto her torso there and never made it to the ground. What is going to stop Rousey from just coming in, locking up with her, getting that judo throw, and submitting her? What's going to stop that? Nothing will. You've already seen you've seen it all from Rousey. You've seen how easily she can get that takedown. Everyone thought Kat Zingano was going to be the one to push her to the limit and take her the distance and make it a dogfight. And what did Rousey do? She just went to her judo and put her down, submitted her. And especially with a fighter like Holm, who is still very green in the UFC, did not come up as an MMA fighter, came up as a boxer. I think Rousey's gonna just exploit that immediately, and frankly, I think she would be dumb not to. Even though I still think I'd like her chances in the stand-up. Holm is technical enough that she at least has a chance of catching her, but what is going to stop Rousey from just running at her, grabbing hold and taking her down? Nothing. So, first round submission for Rousey. That's it. I don't expect this to be any more competitive than the Correia fight, the Zingano fight, any of Rousey's fights. So Rousey all the way. Another first round submission, armbar. That's it. All right. Those are my predictions for UFC 193. Thank you guys for watching. A bit of a long video here. I'm sorry. Trying to keep my videos under 30 minutes. This one looks like it's gone 40 minutes, so I'm sorry about that. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. And we have a couple more events in November. and then another busy month in December. But the train will keep rolling. I will be here with early predictions. Stay tuned. Thank you guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.